And we're live.
Hi friends, welcome to My Divorce Real Estate. I'm Amber Gifford and this is my husband and teammate,
Scotty Gifford.
So what are we talking about today?
Today we thought we'd talk about the gray divorce.
Ooh, gray divorce. Does everybody know what a gray divorce even is? I think some people might have a clue.
Is it a movie? I don't know.
That's not a good movie. Anyway, gray divorce. So it's divorces of people who are over the age of 50 years old. They consider that to be a gray divorce, which are on the rise.
Yeah, statistically, we've seen the rise of gray divorces over the last few years. And there's some people might think that, well, they're later in life and maybe this will be a simpler divorce. But after looking at some of the information on it, we actually think there actually might be more complex than you think.
Yeah, they've actually doubled since the 1990s. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Ding. Anyway, yes, it is true. I think a lot of people are have this preconceived notion that, the kids are older and out, it's probably easier to do this. But there's several reasons why it could possibly be not as easy as you think. So first and foremost, I think is a huge one is going to be health benefits.
Oh, for sure, right? So if you were with your spouse and you guys have been married, you had all the kids on there, and now the kids are kind of growing and moving on, and you think, well, I'll just move on and get health insurance myself.
Yeah, after a certain age, it becomes more costly.
Some pre-existing conditions maybe, right?
Definitely. We have a client currently who has a pre-existing condition that is going to be a lifelong battle. So going through her divorce, she's going to have trouble getting health insurance to cover these things. So as we age, unfortunately, things happen and we have conditions that need to be treated. So your health insurance costs could be on the rise. And then you, being single again, will have to be footing that bill by yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So the only usually three ways to get health insurance right is to go through your employer if you have one. And then maybe you can stay on the X's plan through some COBRA, which is probably going to be
so expensive,
pretty expensive. And then the third one would be going to, the
Medicaid, but you have to be a certain age.
If you haven't reached Medicaid, you're just going to be going into the normal
limbo.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Medicare health insurance situation could be costly.
For sure.
So a second thing that you could possibly be concerned about is having potentially more assets because you are of an older age.
Yeah, so you've had the benefit of time on your side and you've been accumulating more of those assets, so maybe that thing's going to be mostly a positive thing, but there might be some net unrealized gains that are in those IRAs or 401ks, especially if you're talking about some corporate stocks. So that's where we would want to get someone involved, and that our team of people around us with the CDFAs that we can connect you to help you walk through some of those unknowns of those, because those get really complicated and really it's.
You definitely need help from a third party, and a CDFA is a certified financial analyst that delves in the divorce arena to help you with those assets and the division of them and what can possibly or potentially carry you long term if you are single again.
So and then along those same lines, maybe there's we talking about the Social Security.
Yeah, that's another big one too.
Yeah, so if you haven't reached that 62 and a half, to be able to reach, drawing down retirement or Social Security accounts, maybe you're going to have to rely on going back to work or pulling some of those funds from those IRAs or 401ks, which can, once again, talk about those taxes that you're going to have to pay if you do pull those out, right? Usually there's a 10% penalty if we're touching retirement accounts on top of the income tax that you're in depending on your tax bracket. So definitely some tax implications. We talked about some of those in our previous video about tax implications of divorce. So that's going to be one of those you want to look into. But Social Security is
who's claiming it and when?
Yeah. Have you been married those 10 years? Likely, if you're in a gray divorce, maybe you've been married for those long time, but maybe this is your second marriage and you haven't reached, the 10 years for claiming the Social Security benefits. So I think the next thing is we're going to jump into is the college.
Well, I was going to say more about, aside from college, you're talking more about if one of them has been a stay-at-home parent, because that leads into debts, which could lead into college.
Yeah.
So if one of you have been a stay-at-home parent all these years, your potential to go out and get a high-paying job is probably less than someone who's 10 years younger than you, right? I mean, they do take that into consideration.
I mean, time is not on your side at this point, right? You can't build up that new retirement account, or you can't go get that job and work your way up the corporate ladder, right? So
Right, you're competing with 20 and 30-year-olds that are out of college or have more experience because you haven't worked for 20 years, which there's nothing wrong with that. But that's something that you have to take into consideration. That also, creates, if you're planning on keeping the home and buying out your spouse, you have to have lender approval to do so. And if you're not working or you haven't been working, what's your potential of your income earnings, as well as what kind of debts do you have? Kids' cars, kids' cell phones. We know a lot of people who pay for their kids' cell phones still. There could be just accumulated debt from having children, or even your own debt. I mean, like credit card stuff, and then college.
Yeah, exactly. So talking about that qualifying for the keeping the home, like at this point, maybe you want to keep the home because you've been in that home for so many years, and you think that's where the kids are going to come back home from college or whatever, right? If you're going to keep that home, you're going to have to qualify to keep that home, right? So it's going to come down to, like Amber said, the income and the debt. Those debt to income ratio is really going to matter to get you qualified for that. So can your income that you have now by yourself going to be able to sustain that home? Not just in your eyes, but in the bank's eyes too.
Right. And for how long, right?
Yeah, and then we can get into, a little bit of the qualifying. You're going to have to receive income for 6 months. If you haven't been working for 6 months, that income's not going to count, right?
So what does happen to the house? Again, you're back to the same scenario that we're always here working with you and having that team of people to help you navigate through all of this. The college part of it, if you do have children that are in college, Texas has a no obligation to pay for that. You can negotiate anything in your divorce. However, it's not typically noted in a decree that one spouse or the other is paying for that. And if you have kids that are, still in college, that's another huge debt to consider.
Yeah, college expenses have been on the rise for the last, 20 years, right? And so they're just astronomical at this point. Sending kids to college is not a cheap endeavor. But I'm sure it's something that most parents want to provide for their, children if they can. So taking that into consideration when you're going through the divorce is going to be a factor, because like Amber said, if they're 18 or if they graduate high school, there's no obligation in Texas to pay that child support anymore. So what are you looking at? The other thing, talking about, alimony or spousal support if you've been married for those a long time.
Well, there is no alimony considered in Texas, but yeah, it's dependent upon a situation.
Yeah, it's going to come down to
spousal support.
Yeah. So that spousal support is going to, come down to a situation, and it's going to be, have to be proved that the other spouse can't be working, and there's no extenuating circumstances essentially.
Yeah, don't bank on that one for sure. But gray divorces overall, you might think that they would be less invasive, but not necessarily true. And we just told you several reasons why. One, it's going to be health insurance, retirement accounts, Social Security. Your health condition plays a role in all of that if you haven't been working. Yeah,
complicated of having those more assets and what they are, and where they are, what are they in, and then also, the Social Security and then the college fund. So those are all things to consider when you're talking about going through a gray divorce. We are here to help all clients work through these situations about the home and what they're going to do, and connecting them with all the right people. We believe in having a team around you to make those informed decisions about what life's going to look like going forward. So
we hope you found that helpful, and as always, we're here to bring you real life experiences to all your real estate needs.